Ontario, and I'm teaching Chekhov scene study at the Academy. My career. Well, anyway, I lived in Toronto for 29 years after graduating from university in Saskatchewan, and I went down there and I got into theatre fairly quickly, but I did a lot of film and television as well. But most of my work in the theatre was in Toronto, and I went out and did a little bit of regional here and there, but a lot of the smaller theatres, a lot of new Canadian stuff, a real mix. And then I've been doing a lot of, I got into teaching about 16 years ago, and I've been doing more and more of it, and I really enjoy it. I teach a lot of Chekhov scene study, I teach a lot of film work, film acting. I teach a lot, everywhere. I go across Canada teaching, and I've been directing more and more as well. I think it's fantastic, and every year it's just everything has fallen into place because the actors get a broad scope of well, they get everything. They get voice, movement, scene study, fight, singing, everything. I mean, and for someone in their late 20s, early 30s, or anybody to be able to come back and study for a month and then go into and work with each other on a production, I mean, it's fantastic. And the teaching is at really high level. It's people who've been in the business a long time and have learned themselves what has worked for them and how to open up actors and how to help them through problems that they've been having or tricks that they've started to use. It all comes from working professionals, so who've been doing it for a long time, and I think that's important. I said this to my students, well, not the students, the actors. I said this to the participants on our first day. I had a realization not too long ago that when I was in university and I was in my third year, we did Uncle Vanya, and I developed stage fright, extreme stage fright. And every night going to the theater and doing the show was painful for me because when I got on stage, I felt like I didn't know where I was, who I was floating. It was the most, I didn't know if the lines would come out. And it had never happened to me before, and it has never happened to me since. And I wondered why. And I didn't even know if I would go on and continue the theater at the time because I thought, well, if this is going to be the way I am, it's just so frightening. And then I came to the realization recently, it's funny how it takes a long time for the penny to drop, that the reason I didn't is my training was very technically based. It was all about technique. It wasn't about finding the inner workings of the character. Didn't get into the inner realism. And it was all about voice. And what became clear to me is the reason I developed stage fright was because I didn't know what I was doing out there. I had no inner life, and if you have no inner life, of course you're going to be floating. Of course you're not going to know what you're doing, because Chekhov is all about the inner life of these people. He writes about what's going on inside. There's not a lot of action in the place. So if you haven't had a director or anyone to teach you about what that is, and I had never been taught that, and we didn't explore that, then of course you're going to be lost. And so to me, I went, well, what a great way to teach acting, because that's what acting is about finding the inner life of the character. And Chekhov points out if you're faking it. Chekhov points out if when people's tricks, if you're not in the moment, it points out the bullshit. Like no other, because his writing is so spare and so simple, and it's about the basic human wants and needs and daily life, that if you don't know what's going on, you're floating. Because I went, the next plays that I did, of course every part requires you to understand the inner life, but you can get away with it. You can kind of fake your way through it, but in Chekhov you can't. So when I started doing other work again, I kind of was able to fake my way through it, I guess, is the only way I can say it. You can hide, but you can't hide in Chekhov. I moved to Toronto, and there were lots of workshops being offered, and so I just took workshop after workshop after workshop until I finally felt satisfied that I knew then what to do. And then I started, I don't think I really became an actor till I was in about 40, to be honest with you. I did the work and I got by and I did okay. But I really, when I think of it now, I didn't have a clue.